I started trucking in 1956, and I actually bought a 1951 truck from Vern Mumm, and I bought the hauling rights from him also. And over the years I had a lot of trucks. I actually had, I believe, 5 or 6 new trucks. In the late 50s, a 1958 model, I believe, I built a pup trailer for that. And that was kind of unusual because there was pup trailers for milk and there was pup trailers for grain and gravel, but no one ever had one for cattle. So, and I used it for a year or so, but it really didn't work out all that well. Just transferring the cattle from the front to the other part didn't work out real well. So. When it comes to hauling livestock, full load is always easier to haul versus a part load, because the part load, if you turn a corner from left to right, the cattle always went the opposite direction, and so you could tip the truck over. I remember a truck being rolled over near a curve near the stockyards, and you know exactly what happened. You could see that the livestock themselves had actually tipped the truck. So I never wore out brakes on a truck because you were soft pedaled all the time. You always took some time to stop. Otherwise, if you had a quick stop, you'd end up putting the cattle down. One other thing that we always did when we stopped at a farm, the first thing you do is to lock up the local farm dog, because he'd be in the barn and he'd want to help with all the excitement, and he knew he had a role, but he just wasn't sure quite what it was. So he'd get in trouble all the time. I loaded cattle by using gates and a cane and a little hollering. I did have electric prod, which I'd never used on cattle, but once in a while you had to use it to change the pig's mind. Sheep, you could get those started. If you got one going up the chute, the rest of them would follow. You just had to kind of get out of the way and let them load themselves.
As a child, I loved going to the stockyards. It was kind of a carnival atmosphere. After you got done unloading the cattle, you'd go up the catwalks and watch the waves of cattle coming down the cattle alleys. And they were always fearful of loads mixing, because if that ever happened, they would have a real hard time sorting them out. But after we watched the cattle go into the pens, we'd go to the exchange building, and downstairs they had a real good restaurant, and it was fun going down there and eating. And afterwards, we'd go up to the broadcast booth sometimes and watch the salesman or whatever, the announcer up there, Norb Miller or Dick Sampson, read the market report. And I never knew which radio station they were calling, because they were calling radio stations all day long, but it was kind of exciting to see it live. And then afterwards, we'd go to the commission firms and we'd get pens and pencils and rulers and all this kind of stuff, and it was just like going to the fair. It was great. And at the stockyards, they had a huge manure pile. It could have been used as a ski hill. They unloaded all the cattle pens, you know, and they never hauled it away. They unloaded all the cattle pens and hauled it to this manure pile with dump trucks, and then all the cattle trucks that came in would go back there and unload, and they just keep pushing it up into this pile. And we always had a standing joke at home that it was the highest hill in eastern North Dakota.
Lots of people used to complain about the smell of the stockyards, but the cattlemen and truckers, we just thought it smelled like money. So I have to tell the story about Vern Mumm and I took a load with his semi to Indiana. And on the way back, he had a backload in Chicago, so we went to the Chicago stockyards to get the truck washed. And the union guys had to wash the truck there. They wouldn't let you try wash it yourself. So we were standing around while the truck was being washed, and there's this old black guy sitting on a pile of hides, and he's eating a sandwich. And so we're talking to him, and they said, "Well, does the smell bother you around?" He said, "You know," he said, "when I get my check," he said, "I smell that." And he said, "If that don't smell," he said, "I come back to work next week." Stockyards are full of really nice people, and you know, there was millionaires and there was people that didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but everyone treated everybody the same. They were just very good people. Roger thinks I should be telling some stories about what happened at different times during hauling the livestock. One time, Amo Keel, I loaded a cow at his place, and I forgot to lock the gate when I left, and actually the cow fell out the back as I left, and I didn't realize it. I drove 3-4 miles over to Klumsted's place and realized I didn't have the cow in there anymore, so I had to turn around and go back, and he's standing there with a big smile on his face, standing with the cow, so reloaded it, and he never let me forget that. So.
One time when Dad was sick, once in a while I hauled cattle when I got to be over 18, but one time he was sick, so I took a load of hogs, and I had 2 stops. And the first one was at Ed Schroeder's. He had a 700-pound boar pig and some market hogs, and then my second stop was at Don Anderson's up by Callaway, and he had a couple boar pigs and some market hogs also. Well, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to mix boar pigs from 2 different farms. They were all right if you mixed them from one farm, they wouldn't fight, but if you mixed them from 2 different farms, they would fight till one killed the other. Well, so I put them double-decked front to back and loaded the truck full, and I started heading for Fargo, well, leaving Callaway. Well, I got as far as Westbury, and the truck was kind of rocking back and forth, and what it was they had fought till they broke the decking. And the best way I can explain it is if you had a 2-story house and you had standing room only in the bottom and the top floor came down on the bottom, that's essentially what you had with broken boards, and it was a mess. Well, the second lesson I learned in this whole thing is whenever you had a mad boar pig, which a 700-pound boar pig was still mad, whenever you had a mad boar pig, you were supposed to tell the yard workers because of the danger of them taking a run at it. Well, that boar pig took a run at one of the yard workers, so I got chewed out over that. So it was 2 lessons learned in one day.
Another time I hauled a load of milk cows for Myrtle Hindram. She was a well-known local dairy lady here, and she was really proud of her cows, and she petted them and talked to them all the time. And so she sold this load to a farm down by Rochester, and she decided she wanted to ride along and see what kind of a home her cows are going to have. So we're down in St. Cloud. I stopped at a truck stop, and she's out and she's checking on her cows, and she's calling their name, and when she'd call her name, they'd move back at her, and these people walking around, and they're just shaking their heads. They thought that was pretty amazing. Our friend Roger Engstrom, he's one of the well-known and respected farmers of those times. And I also remember I loaded a couple loads of cows from him, and I headed down on the road to Milo Eterno's place. And Milo says, "Those cows look like they came from Roger's." And I said, "Yeah, they were Roger Engstrom's." He said, "You know," he said, "Roger calls better cows than what I am milking." And then he says, "Roger is a real dairyman. The rest of us guys just milk cows." So I thought that was a kind of a profound statement coming from a good neighbor. I logged nearly 1,000,000 miles hauling livestock, and I guess 99% of that was right out of Becker County. But I like to look back on that era with fond memories and of all the farmers who weren't only my customers, they were my friends.